In today's episode of our road to Unicum, we review the Škoda T25. This is the Tier 6 Czech medium tank that leads up to the awesome Škoda T50 that we reviewed back in episode 42. And if you're wondering whether or not it's worth the grind up to the Tier 9, I think the Tier 6 is a good tank for you to play. It's a good proxy for the Škoda T50 in terms of the playstyle, so if you enjoy this Tier 6 tank, you'll most likely enjoy the Škoda. And they share several things in common. The autoloader, the intra clip, so the between shot reload is really short, so you can pump out 3 shells quickly, and then the tank also has excellent gun depression. So the Škoda T25 has 10 degrees of gun depression, which is better than the 8 on the Škoda T50, but it's a similar feeling tank in terms of how you drive it. You'll notice that the view range, even with coated optics, is not that great. You can see the green circle, and it's not filled out to the 445 meters of max spotting range, so I don't really want to go hang out by the edges to the ditch. You can see our Panther M10 is there, but where that Panther is not typically already safe. And if you're on the left side of that ditch, the north side, kind of where the Tiger 131 is heading down towards, you can be shot by tanks that are hull down over on the H4 shelf. So there is a light tank, their LTG, which is overextended, and one thing which is great about having such a compact 3-shot autoloader is it gives you a lot of opportunities to deal module damage, in particular to track opponents and set them on fire. So the autoloader reloads really quickly. It's only about 7 seconds, and this gives me an opportunity to use a second clip, and I set that tank on fire, and then we finish him off. And then I've been looking periodically over at this T34-85. He's not looking at me, and his hull armor is relatively weak, so this allows me to get 3 penetrating shots, and that last one was definitely a little bit of a risk because the T54 Mod 1 had started to pull in front of that tank, it was a fine thing for him to do, to go bully him and finish him off, but I went ahead and took the shot to try to get that extra damage in. Now that Sherman Jumbo, that E2, is firing HE, so I gotta be careful since this tank has paper thin armor, and what you really need to be careful of when you're playing an autoloader that is squishy is not getting into situations where there's hard cover and that you'll be exchanging shots 1-for-1 with opponents. So for example, even if I pull up onto this little hill here and fire at the opponents, generally speaking, I only get 1 shot off to their 1 shot off before they pull back behind the rock. And Artie's kind of aiming in my direction. This is certainly pretty common, especially for Arties that have XVM, and even more so since I've turned on my ranked badge icon. The really funniest thing is that a lot of players have asked me before and after the games whether I'm a pro player, and of course the answer is no, but I think sometimes opposing players think if they shoot and kill me, that they're going to get 250 gold. At any rate, I decided to redirect because, like I said, there's too much of a brawling going on, and as an autoloader, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're trying to fire on a target and you're going to receive return fire from more than one vehicle, and that's very much what's going to happen in the southern part of this map. And my spidey sense has been tingling. I've been looking at the middle of the map, and it's pretty open. And the reason why I flex back over here is because our Hellcat is alone. If he gets killed and our M12 already gets picked off, then we've lost map control, and they can either flank us on the north or south side of the map. We are winning south big, and it is really important that our heavies and other tanks went down there in force, and you may have noticed at the very beginning of the game I was calling for help there. Now this Cromwell has 3 marks on his barrel. I turn on the marks of excellence for a couple reasons. One, it's a fun thing to have when you mark your tanks, I want to see it on the barrel, but more importantly, when I see friendly or enemy tanks that have 2 or 3 marks on their barrel, or even 1, it gives me an idea of their general confidence level, and you don't get to 3 marks on any tank unless you're playing that tank very well. There is a couple things to note. So I did finish off the Cromwell, but had I known that situation, that he would have been able to find that corner of that hard cover, and that my friendly tanks that were on the ice road were going to die that were in front of him, I probably wouldn't have pushed down, because the Cromwell has the rock next to him, so he's able to control how much exposure he has, whereas I cannot where I was positioned. And the thing that really helped bail me out was I was spotting for a friendly IS-6 who was shooting from that H4 shelf, a very long shot, but he managed to land, a heavy damaging shot of 390 alpha that allowed me to finish him off. Now you can see I've got that intervening soft cover, the tree looks solid, and we talked about this back in episode 41 in my guide to light tanks, but in those kind of situations, it's unlikely that you're going to get spotted, or I should say rather less likely, because even when you fire, you don't lose the camo value from those bushes and trees between you. Now ideally I'd like to go and finish off that tank destroyer and they're arty. But the problem here is that, you know, I'm below half health, and if I cross the gap towards their spawn and the black prince spots me, he's probably going to get at least one damaging shot in, and at that point I would be one-shottable by the tank destroyer. So I'm being fairly careful here. We have a lead, we have pretty good map control, and then once this tank destroyer is spotted, he's on a pretty very exposed shelf, and I don't know if he was up there the entire game or not, but there's two really common mistakes that players make on this map. One is to spawn camp on the shelf right above their spawn on the hill, and the issue with that is that you will go very long stretches of the match without keeping your gun at play, and a lot of times you'll only be able to shoot tanks if your side is losing control of areas of the maps. You know, you're losing the battle, right? And so, you know, late damage it's important, but it's really important to have your gun active in the early to mid stages of the game so you can help to direct the game flow. And so that's why, you know, whenever I see friendly players sitting up on that shelf when we leave spawn, I basically know I'm not going to be able to count on them for almost anything, because the kind of player who would go and sit up there is going to be, you know, very ineffective or not contributing in any kind of meaningful way. And you can check this out. Like, I mean, this is so great. The gun handling on this is really good for a tier 6, and then, you know, the really fast 7 seconds to reload the clip, and that already wasn't even bothering to try. I don't know if his turret was damaged or he just gave up, but there was no way he's going to be able to get a shot off on me because I was able to reload so quickly. Now, I am pursuing their arty and trying to flank them down the ice road, and you'll hear people talking about why it's bad to go to ice road, and if you're not clear why, let me explain. One is that this east road and north road, this ice road area, has very high terrain resistance. It's also a very long way to drive, and there's a big bottleneck here where this the M44 is, and you can get stuck here at this bottleneck for a long period of time. So a lot of time teams will stalemate, or it takes a long time for this to resolve. And even if your side wins the ice road, you then have to push. If you push toward the enemy spawn, you have to go up a long slope. Again, all of this equals a lot of wasted time, whereas, you know, in the middle and south parts of the map, especially the south, that's a key area to determine who's going to win the battle. Things are going to go a lot faster, and if you're in the middle or south parts of the map, you have the option to flex and contribute meaningfully throughout the game, early, middle, and late. And that's why you'll hear Unicum say all the time, don't go ice road on Mountain Pass, don't go beach and Overlord, don't go Valley in Lakeville. It's because it's generally very ineffective. And then there's such a funny thing. We're trying to, like, you know, hashtag save arty, and our 304 gets hit by our friendly arty, and I'd missed an earlier shot. If I hadn't missed a shot, I probably would have saved this arty. But you'll notice earlier I ran from this tier 8 American medium like the plague. Like, once we killed their 3-mark Cromwell, I turned around and ran away bravely, because there's no way I'm going to be able to damage that American heavy frontally. Even if I were using premium ammo, it would have been impossible to pen him. And, you know, sometimes what tank drivers will do in fast tanks is attempt to drive toward a tank to get behind him, but if you do that when they're not reloading, and especially when they're looking at you and you're at low hit points, you're just asking to get wrecked. So this, like I said, the tier 6 was an unexpected gem. I didn't really know anything about the Czech medium tank line, you know, except that the 9 was awesome and the 10 is also, some people don't like, but generally it can be a pretty effective tank. I hear horror stories about the tier 7s and 8s, and I track my stats using, you know, Watt Labs, and stats aren't an end means, you know, an end to themselves. They're a means to an end, and hopefully if your, you know, gameplay is improving over time, you'll see gradual improvements to your win rate and to your W&A. A lot of people, I think, misunderstand stat tracking. It's, like I said, it's to measure performance, right? And then, like, I think it's really interesting, if you look at the Czech medium line, my stats from tiers 5 through 9, you can see with the tier 6 that I pulled over a 73% win rate and averaged over 1,000 damage per game. Was able to carry in a lot of situations. And then, you know, I had heard bad things about the T34 100, the tier 7, but to my surprise, I was able to pull a 69% win rate and average over 1,400 damage per game for a Super Unicum W8 with silver ammo. But what gets really interesting, the TVP VTU, everyone complains about this tank, and I totally see why. I struggled to carry with it. I eked out a 54% win rate, and, you know, that's totally out of line compared to the win rates for the rest of the Czech medium tanks for me. And then the damage per game was barely any higher when you compare the tier 7 to tier 8. And so those are all pretty clear indications that the tier 8 underperforms, and, you know, so my experience is similar to a lot of players who hate the tier 8. But let me know if you guys are interested. I'd be happy to make a video covering the tier 7 and tier 8 and kind of talking through some of their issues and how to try to mitigate that. Please like this video and share this with your friends, and also want to give a shout out to Frankie McShanky, who donated gold to me recently. So again, thank you guys for your support, and I will see you guys soon. Take care.